Hi everybody, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be making a patchwork receiving blanket, baby blanket. So it is just patchwork squares. So these are 5 cut squares. This is great for if you have a charm pack. You can use flannel or quilt cotton. So I used flannel on this one. I think I actually had fat quarters that I trimmed down. But it uses 42 squares, which is a typical charm pack. So great for one of those if you have one of those lying around with some cute baby prints. So it is 7 across. What should I use this? We do 7 squares across by 6 squares down. So it ends up being 42. Exactly enough for a charm pack. And then we use a little less than a yard of backing fabric. So again, I used flannel for that. You can use flannel. Again, you could use quilt cotton, or you could even do minky fabric. So I believe I'll leave the measurements and stuff like that down below, but I believe you don't even have to get a full yard of the backing fabric. You could do I think 32 inches would be enough, maybe 33, just in case they cut it weird or something. But yeah, so you don't even need a full yard for the back of it. And it's just a cute little blanket, great for a baby shower gift. You know, new moms could use it for tummy time, or, you know, just playtime on the ground, whatever. Or playing outside, something to lay it down so that they're not sitting in the grass and eating everything. But yeah, so there we go. So just a quick little patchwork blanket with, sorry, there's something in my eye. There's no batting or anything in it, so it's a nice lightweight blanket, and it comes together really quick. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so I have all of my pieces laid out here. I have it going 7 by 6. So that'll use up all 42 squares of your charm pack, if that's what you're using. And that's how I use up all of them. And it ends up being a nice size. So now we just need to go ahead and piece all of these together. So I'm just going to go ahead and I like to do it like these 2 rows together with these 2 rows together, and just go ahead and this square here, I am going to flip over onto this one. So the one on the right, flip over onto the one on the left, so that everything is all in line. I can just sew right down there, chain piecing all of these together. All right, so now I have all of the piles set up just like this, all exactly in order as to how I laid them out. So now I'm going to go ahead and just bring these piles over to my sewing machine, leaving them in the exact same order. So this pile over here, I am going to put on my left, and this one in the middle, this one on the right, so that over at my sewing machine, everything is still exactly in the order that it was when I laid it out. All right, so I have my 3 piles here, just as I had over laid out on the floor. So this is the one that was to the left, middle, and right. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and take each of these pieces and sew right along here, knowing that this is the bottom one. So I'm gonna be kind of sewing it in the opposite direction, I guess, because the first one that I'm going to be sewing is going to be the bottom, and that's going to be at the end of my chain. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew this chain, and then go and lay them out, and then I'll come back and sew this chain, lay those ones out, and then sew this chain and lay them out, pressing each of them as I go. All right, so now we have all of these in order here. And if we keep them all in order so that the side that we sewed is on the right, go ahead and snip these. So this is my top row now. So you gotta keep that in mind. And now this is the one that we started with, which is my bottom row. And I'm going to keep them exactly like this. and take this over to my ironing board, where I'm going to go ahead and press the seam to one side, but we're going to alternate. So this one here, I'm going to go ahead and press it towards one of these, like towards this one, press it open that way, and the next one I'm going to press towards the other side. So it can get a little confusing sometimes, but just do the best that you can, and we're just going to go ahead and get these pressed open. All right, so I'm going to take this one, set the seam. Now with flannel, you don't want to be like giving it a tug or anything, 'cause flannel can be kind of stretchy. So I'm just going to set the seam and then just kind of set my iron on top of it and make sure it's nice and flat. All right, now this is my bottom piece again, so you got to keep that in mind. So that one we're pressing that direction. So now this next one, we already pressed this one this direction. So now we need to flip this one over and press it in that direction. So now these two are pressed in opposite directions. This one is going this way while this one is going this way. And now we can go to the next one, and this one we're gonna leave just as is and press that one open. And this one we need to flip. Okay, so now I can go ahead and lay these out back on my mat on the floor, with this now being the top pile again. Every time we do something to it, either the bottom or the top is on top, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. So now this is my top row, so now I'm going to go ahead and lay this back out with this being the top row. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do all of those steps with the other two columns that I have laid out. All right, so I have this row done, and this row done, column, whatever. Each of these, like these two are connected, these two are sewn together. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and flip this piece over top of this one and get those two sewn together, just like I did with this one. Press it, and then alternating directions, press these ones all the way down, and then we'll connect this last row here. All right, so we have all of our rows sewn together. So all of these are all pieced together. So now we need to go ahead and take one of the rows, flip it over so that it's right sides together with the next row. Nest these seams on all of them. They should be all in opposite directions. And go ahead and sew these two together, and then these two together, and these two, and then these two. All right, so these are my bottom two rows. So what we're gonna do is just butt these two seams right up against each other. They should be facing the opposite directions. So this one is going this way, and this one is going this way. And you just kind of wiggle your fingers until the seams just kind of lock in place, because they're going in opposite directions. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and put a pin in there or a clip, and do that with all of these. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and sew this at a sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when we're done with this, we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing to the next row, nesting the seams, and then the next row again. And then we can go ahead and take it over to the iron and just give that seam a press in either direction. This seam right here is not going to be connecting with any other seam, so it doesn't matter which direction it goes. You can pick which way you want to press it to. All right, so we have these rows sewed together. So now last time we just need to flip these two to be right sides together and nest those seams and sew. And then once these two are together, then we'll connect it with this one here. And then we will have one big top of our blanket. All right, so we have our top of our blanket all pieced together. So now we need to go ahead and take our backing fabric and give that a press with the iron so it's wrinkle free, or as wrinkle free as we can get it. And we're gonna lay that right side up. My fabric does not really have a right side or a wrong side, so. All right, but you wanna make sure that yours is right side up. And then we're gonna take our topper that we pieced together and lay that right side down. And we just want to make sure that it is all smoothed out with no wrinkles or creases or anything on any of the pieces. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and just trim down the backing, this fabric here, so that it's the same size as the top. And if you have a big enough table for this, then this would be great to do at your cutting table. This was like the exact same size as my table this way, so it just wasn't gonna work. So I gotta do it on the floor. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trim down so that it is the same size, or so that both pieces are the same size. All right, so all trimmed down. So now we're just gonna go ahead and clip all the way around, or pin, whichever one you have. I'm just gonna go ahead and clip all the way around, leaving an opening probably about the size of one of these squares. So I'll probably, but I don't wanna like leave the opening there with two seams. I'll probably do an opening that kind of goes mid-seam or mid-square to mid-square. So I have a good like 5-inch opening here, and that's what we're gonna use to turn this all right side out. So I'm not gonna pin in this spot here, but I will the rest of the way around. All right, so we got it all clipped together all the way around except for the opening right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start sewing right here all the way around and then stop right over here. And we're just gonna use a 1/4 inch seam allowance like we've done on the rest of the blanket. Back stitch at the beginning. So we are back at the starting point. So that was my last clip. So there's not one on this intersection, so I know that my opening is coming up. So there's where my stitches started. So now I'm just going to go ahead and sew a little ways into that seam. Back stitch. And there we go. So there is our opening where we're going to turn this through. But before we do that, we just want to go, if you are nervous about if it shifted, you can go all the way around and just kind of check your seam and make sure that you caught the, both sides of the fabric all the way around. But really what we need to do is on each of the corners, I'm just going to go ahead and snip off that corner, just because that's a lot of fabric there that is going to be trying to poke into the corner there, and it just kind of bunches up and it makes the corner not sit so nicely. So on each of the corners we're just going to trim off the fabric there. So we're just going straight across, close to our stitches but not through them. I would say leave yourself like 1/8 of an inch away from the corner, just so that you don't come too close to snipping your thread. All right, so now we need to find that opening again, which is right here. So now we can go ahead and stick our hand in and just start pulling that out. You can use, if you have a pair of scissors that have a blunt end, you don't want to use ones that are super pointy like that because that'll just poke right through. But if these are kind of blunt, you can use your scissors to just very carefully push them into the corners here. And it just gives you a nice point there. Or you can use, like I have a chopstick from a bag of polyfill that I have kept that I use, and it works very well. You just poke out that corner, move on to the next one. Oops. Don't push too hard because it is possible to push right through your seam there. All right, so we have each of our corners poked out, so it's a nice point there. And then we're just going to take it over to our iron and just give the seam a nice press. And it just makes it easier when we're top stitching so that it doesn't start like curling and then you see some of the backing fabric when we are top stitching it. It just kind of gives us a nice seam prepped for top stitching. So just all the way around, we're going to go ahead and give that a press with the iron. And the opening here, we're also going to go ahead and fold this in. Give it a press with the iron and just make sure that it is flush with the rest. So we're just folding it in 1/4 inch, giving it a press with the iron, and then clipping it in place. All right, so we have the entire blanket all pressed with the iron, all of the edges, and then I have the opening over here. So this is where the opening was, and I folded those edges in, gave that a press, and then I am using clips to hold it closed. And now we're just going to go ahead and the entire way around, give it a top stitch at 1/8 inch seam allowance, which will just give the blanket a nice finish, as well as close up this opening over here so nobody will ever know that that is where we turned it. It'll be nice and hidden over in the side seam there. And then once we're done with that, then we're done. So I'm just starting right at my opening over here. I'm gonna back stitch. And I did go ahead and increase it since this is top stitching to like a 3.5 stitch length. It's more kind of a decorative stitch, so it doesn't need to be super close together. So. So I made it all the way back around. So now I'm at my starting thread over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim off that thread tail. And then once I come back to my starting threads, I'll back stitch. And then trim these threads. And there we go, the blanket is done. All right, well there we go. That is our little receiving blanket. So it's a little patchwork blanket, great for tummy time or wrapping up the little newborn. It is the double layer, so it is a little bit thicker than a typical receiving blanket, but yeah, that'll be great for, like I said, just tummy time, playing on the floor, anything like that. So yeah, and you can do it in a variety of prints. You could do one solid print, or patchwork like this, you know, whatever you would prefer. There we go. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for future videos. But I'll see you next time. Bye.